Hi everyone, this is Victoria from the Elite Medical Prep YouTube channel. We have a very exciting interview lined up today. We're going to be speaking to Dr. Jason Ryan from Boards and Beyond, a definite fan favorite amongst the medical school learning community for the USMLE exams. So without taking up too much time, let's jump right into talking to him. Let's get started. Hello, Dr. Ryan. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's definitely wonderful to be able to speak about Boards and Beyond. We're very, very excited. A lot of our viewers are very, very excited. So if you're ready, we would love to get right into it, ask you some questions about the Boards and Beyond product, as well as kind of your background, what to expect in the future of Boards and Beyond, and all that good stuff. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
If you could first please briefly just tell us a little bit about your medical school education, your postgraduate training path, current work, all of that, we would love to hear it.
Sure. So I'm from Connecticut, and I went to the University of Connecticut for medical school. And then I trained in internal medicine and cardiology in Boston at a hospital called Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. And I completed training as a general cardiologist. And when I finished, I took a job at UConn where I had been a student. It was a really nice place to go back to. It was very familiar to me. And part of the reason I took the job is because I liked teaching and I wanted the opportunity to teach residents and fellows and medical students. And so as I was there for a few years, I gave lectures to the medical students and they told me they liked them. And then one thing led to another, and I got the idea to start recording my lectures to put them online. And that was in about 2014 is when I launched Boards and Beyond with a very small number of videos just in cardiology. And then it's sort of grown by degrees every year from then until it is what it is now, where it really houses a library of hundreds of videos on topics, and we've added a question bank to go with the videos, and it is what you know it to be today.
Wow, so that kind of is a perfect segue into the next question. We'll move really quickly here. How did you decide to create the Boards and Beyond video series? It sounds like from what you just said, it kind of just happened, but you mentioned starting with the cardiology videos. So I'm curious, how did it snowball into the thousands of videos, as you mentioned, that we're able to see today?
Yeah, great question. So like I said, I had been teaching medical students before I created Boards and Beyond.
Mhm.
And some of them came to my clinic and some of them came to my office to talk to me. And they had told me they really loved my teaching and they wished I could teach more. As you know, in a medical school, it's unusual for one teacher to give more than, a small handful of lectures on
Absolutely.
topics because there's a lot of faculty and things are spread around. And so I had heard of Pathoma and I obviously knew what YouTube was. And so between my students telling me to record my videos and seeing what Pathoma was and seeing YouTube, I thought maybe I can do this, let me give this a try. And so I launched it with just cardiology videos. But then the feedback I got was, please, can you make more on more topics? And I had taught medical students renal physiology and pulmonary physiology. And I also used to be in the anatomy lab during cadaver dissection. So I had experience outside of just clinical cardiology, which was my practice. So I started making videos in other areas, and then it sort of, became like an addiction. I'd find a new topic and I would brush up on it and I would look at what was out there and think about ways that I could teach it that might connect with students more, really add my own style to explaining things. And so then here we are now, years later, with Boards and Beyond being what it is.
Right. Well, it certainly seems like students have connected with the videos, as you kind of mentioned. I don't think there's any kind of debate that Boards and Beyond is definitely beloved by a lot of medical students at this point, both in the United States and internationally. So I'm curious if you have any insight kind of from your side of things. What do you think makes this video series so popular among students? What would be the reason for its appeal so strongly within the medical education community?
I mean, I can just tell you the way I like to think about medical science. I was never, I was still am not and never was a good memorizer. So when I just had to memorize something that this is this, it never really worked for me. I always was the kind of student who wanted to understand why. Why do I need to know this? Why is it important? Why is it this way for this group and another way for another group? And so those questions I've asked my whole career as I've tried to understand patients and things I did in my training. And so, I can't tell you why any individual student might like it or not like it, but that's always been my style, is whenever possible to avoid saying this is just a factoid that you just need to know, and better to say, look, this is why it's important to know this. I try to tie it to patient care, because if I can think about how this is important in a person who's sick or a person who's well, it helps me to understand it better. And then also just to make connections and say, you already know this, so now it should make sense to you that this is also true. Like, these connections in your mind help you to retain the material. So that's my approach to everything I do in medicine and taking care of my own patients. And from the feedback I get from my students, I think they really like that, because they don't like just memorizing certain facts. They want to know why this is important. And I always try to get that across in my teaching.
Right. Well, it certainly sounds like Boards and Beyond is more than just a company, that you've put in quite a lot of time and energy into really kind of sifting out what is the most important things for these medical students to know. So on that note, what are some new and exciting features that we can look forward to in Boards and Beyond as a platform, as well as kind of anything that was launched in late 2020, as it is the new year here, that you want to talk about? Because we know it has grown quite a bit. And from our side, we've seen some really interesting developments. And I would love if you could speak on that a little bit.
Sure. So we've gotten such great feedback over the years from our student users, and that's driven a lot of the changes in the site. It looks nothing now like it did when it launched in 2014. It's a completely different website. And so some of the things we've added over the years are, you can tag videos as a favorite video or a watched video, and you can sort to see your favorites or your not, or your videos you haven't watched yet. We've added the ability to type notes under the video while you're watching it and save them and download them and print them. This all came from user suggestions. We've added playlists, which students have asked for over the years. So you can build your own playlist of the 8 videos that maybe are most helpful for your upcoming exam. And then you can make that playlist public and share it, and other people can go find it. So, there've been a lot of things like that over the years, just designed to make the site more user friendly and to better support people studying. We didn't have the slides published when we launched. Now you can download the slides as PDFs. You can buy books of slides from Amazon. So all those things are designed to make it more user friendly. The big thing we're adding now is content for step 2 and step 3 in clinical rotations. That was also a student suggestion. Incidentally, I
Yeah.
never launched a site intending to go into that area,
Mhm.
but some people said they used the step 1 videos for step 2, and many requests came in asking for videos in the same style built for step 2. So it eventually became the obvious place to go. And we're probably about 2/3 done with building the content for that. It will eventually have a complete video library and a complete question bank to go with it, just like what the Step 1 website has. And then we're also looking into developing a mobile app. This has been a request for a long time.
Okay, wow.
People want to be able to download videos when they go on an airplane and,
Mhm.
watch them offline and take quizzes offline. So we're in the very early stages of that, but hopefully that will move forward to this year.
Well, that certainly sounds very exciting, and I think there's a lot for Boards and Beyond users to be looking forward to. Some of the questions we specifically saw was on the White Coat Companion book. Could you
Mhm.
say a few words on what that is?
Yeah, sure. So a former student of mine who's now a physician in Boston, uh, that book was his idea. He felt that many of the that there wasn't like a first aid for the boards like there is for step 1, for step 2. I mean, there is a first aid for step 2, but there wasn't a book that worked as well as that book worked for step 1. There are lots of books for step 2. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but he felt like there was a gap there. So we worked together to create the White Coat Companion. It's written by, his name's Michael Orinsky, and Sana Majid, and myself are the authors. And it's basically a bullet point sort of index of things you need to know for step 2 and step 3 in clinical rotations. Look up diagnostic tests, disease diagnostic criteria, treatments. And it's been really helpful for the step 2 videos because we've built them around that book.
Hmm.
So the idea is that you can look in the book and see things, and then I explain them in the videos, just like First Aid for Step One is not a good book to introduce yourself to material because it has so many
Right.
details, but you can go back to it once you know it. And in my videos, I try to explain the facts that are in First Aid for the boards. Same thing here. In my videos, I try to explain what's in the White Coat Companion so it can be used as a sort of a book that goes alongside the videos.
Wow, well, we'll definitely be excited to hear more information about that as students interact with it more and more for Step 2 CK. In the interest of time, we will quickly segue into our next question here so that our viewers aren't on for too long. In terms of students that are in the market for a USMLE board exam prep video resource, what do you feel sets apart Boards and Beyond from other competitors within this space?
Well, I think it's what I said before. I really try hard to explain the why behind everything because I feel like not only does that help you get board questions right, but that's what helps you to be a better doctor because you understand why things are done. And then you can understand the times when you don't need to do them because you know why they're being done. You're not just following a recipe in a cookbook for how to manage a certain condition.
Right.
And so I really try to make sure with every slide I make that I'm trying to ask myself, why is this way? Why is it important to know it this way? How does that matter for patients? How is that similar to other things we do so that you can make connections in your mind? And so, I haven't seen every other resource that's out there, so it's hard to say what they have and don't have. And certainly, there's no perfect resource for everybody. I always tell students, you should use what works best for you. I'd love to say use Boards and Beyond and you'll ace your test, but that wouldn't wouldn't be true. But I think what I try to make it, the way I try to make it unique is by having that understanding, that foundational knowledge as part of all the videos.
Wonderful. So how can students make the most out of using Boards and Beyond with that foundational knowledge in kind of the entirety of their subscription? Many students we know use Boards and Beyond for a longer period of time other than just right before studying for the USMLE exams, which is what we typically recommend actually is to start earlier. So are there any other words that you could say on that subject?
Yeah, I mean, students have used it so many different ways, and I'm always blown away by how much videos people can binge the week before their test. But I personally, like, if I'd had this back when I was a student, which I wish I had, I would use it slowly along the way. So you can watch the videos on, for example, the Step 2, 3 videos on pediatrics at the start of your
Sure.
rotation. And then, you might look at some of them again before your shelf exam. And then you might refresh your memory before your Step 2 or Step 3 exam. But I sort of think using them along the way when you're not pressed for time and trying to watch them all right away is the best way. You can read along in the White Coat Companion. You can read along in textbooks that you might be assigned for your class. A lot of students have told me that they are assigned like textbook reading or journal reading, but it's
Mhm.
hard to make sense of it. It's so dense. So the videos
Right.
can introduce you to the topics, and then you can go and read Harrison's internal medicine chapter,
Mm.
and it will sort of be easier to digest. So I think using it along the way, and then the questions really help you to go from a passive learning to an active learning.
Right.
A lot of students have told me they like to do the questions a day after they watch the video to try and make sure they still remember it. So that's a suggestion for people. But I think doing the questions to make sure, because I can explain to you what a disease looks like in a particular patient, but then when you see it in a board question, it can be hard to recognize it till you've practiced that.
Absolutely.
So the questions are designed to take the material that you just learned from the video and force you to have to apply it.
Wonderful. Well, those were all of the questions that we had mapped out for this interview. Was there anything else you would like to add before we go ahead and end this?
No, I mean, I'll just say thank you to all the students that use Boards and Beyond. I mean, I had no idea when I started it, it would get to this point, and people have sent us really nice feedback and suggestions over the years and, helped to make it to what it is today. So we're really grateful for everyone that uses it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here on the Elite Medical Prep channel. We certainly appreciate being able to interview as many kind of names within the USMLE prep industry as possible so that, different resources have a face to put with the name that they're using. So thank you again, and until next time.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. That's all the time that we have for this interview. A huge thank you again to Dr. Jason Ryan from Boards and Beyond for being here to answer your questions. If you have further questions about Boards and Beyond or for Jason Ryan specifically, feel free to drop them in the comments below this video and we'll pass them right along. You can also subscribe to the Elite Medical Prep YouTube channel for more videos, and you can definitely subscribe to the Boards and Beyond YouTube channel for additional videos from Dr. Jason Ryan. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.